So a few weeks ago I picked up the LMP3 car on iRacing, and as soon as I put it on track, I started struggling with it. I faced multiple challenges, such as the car feeling very nervous near the limit, spinning a lot under braking, finding it very difficult to counter slides due to heavy rebounds, and all in all I was lacking trust in the car because I felt like it was constantly trying to kill me. This was most likely also accentuated by the fact that right before driving the LMP3 I was running GT4 and GT3 cars, which have a fundamentally different style of driving. Overall, I really wanted to improve my trust in the car to make the driving experience more enjoyable, and focusing on the 5 tips that I'm about to share with you majorly improved my experience. If you find this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing. To follow me on other platforms, check out the links in the description. Right, let's get into it. So let's start with braking. Tip number 1, never brake above 85%. This car has no ABS, so if you do, you will inevitably lock up your tires and spin. To practice this and gain confidence, I started off by braking earlier than my normal brake points, never exceeding 80 to 85% brake pressure and only braking hard in a straight line. Even if you do this relatively well, it's very easy to lock up one of the tires on this car, especially locking up one of the rear tires. If that happens, make sure you ease on the brakes smoothly to prepare yourself optimally for the turn-in phase of the corner. And if for whatever reason you want or have to brake harder than 85%, look, actually it's possible, as you can see on the screen. However, if you do, you need to immediately drop the brake pressure after hitting 100%. If you hold that at 100%, it will not go well. Tip number 2. Maximize trail braking and minimize coasting in slow corners. This car seriously tends to understeer when coasting, especially on the fixed setup. As such, you want to be applying brake pressure, even if minimal, all the way until the apex to make sure that the car keeps rotating. So after the initial heavy brake zone, where you will brake hard in a straight line, you want to significantly lower the initial brake pressure application whilst gently trailing on the brakes. Ideally, in this car, you want to be on the brakes or on the throttle, with minimal coasting time in between. And bear in mind that this car really does not like braking hard during turning. Now, if after applying tip number 1 and tip number 2 you're still struggling to keep the car under control when braking, don't worry, because tip number 3 will help you significantly, and that is increasing brake bias. Moving brake bias towards the front tires, and therefore increasing the brake bias value, makes the brakes more forgiving and easier to manage. So by default the value will be at about 57%. You want to increase this value somewhere between 59 and 61%. Bear in mind, however, that despite the fact that you will get more stability out of this change, you will lose out on pace. So once you get comfortable, I would advise lowering the brake bias back down towards the original value. Tip number 4. With this car, you have to be smooth and you have to be precise. Those of you who are used to driving open wheel, high downforce cars will most likely already be very good at this. However, if you're used to driving GT3 cars, it's likely that you're going to have to adapt. This car, from what I noticed, absolutely does not like being thrown around. Also, it tends to be quite unforgiving and it's quite difficult to catch when it snaps. To avoid it snapping, make sure that you're as smooth as possible with all of your inputs. To get this car safely through a race, you're going to have to gently manage the balance of the car. We already talked in depth about braking, But what about turning, downshifting, and throttle application? All these aspects are important to manage the balance of the car, so let's quickly talk about them. So, when it comes to turning, I try to correct my turning as little as possible during a corner. I move my steering wheel gently and avoid sudden janks. Regarding downshifting, I notice that this car has a lot of engine braking, so I tend to downshift steadily in a straight line to help me slow the car down. That way I can also ease some pressure that would otherwise go on the brakes. For slow corners, I always make sure that I'm in second gear before I have to turn steeply. To keep the car as stable as possible, you want to downshift when the RPM is low. And that goes especially for the downshift from third gear down to second gear. So you want to make sure that you get that downshift done smoothly and preferably in a relatively straight line. And finally, when you're on the throttle, make sure you apply it gently, especially if you're coming out of a slow corner. Fifth and final tip, relax your hands. The force feedback on this car is amazing. It's probably one of the best in iRacing. So let the car talk to you. Try to relax your hands and keep them relatively light on your steering wheel. This will allow you to feel the force feedback in an optimal way, which in turn helps you understand the car's behavior. After a few laps, this will help you prevent upsetting the car, and it will allow you to catch spins before they turn deadly, and you will see that your inputs will also get smoother. This lap, and as it stands, we're currently getting 36 points of iRating. Oh man. Oh, it snapped on me again. Oh.
Still there, clear left.
This is a bit counterintuitive, especially when you're driving a car that you don't trust. You will have the tendency to grip the steering wheel very tightly, but this will hinder your ability to understand what the car is doing and to respond. I would like to give a shout out to Suelio Almeida, because I learned this tip through one of his videos. I found it extremely useful, especially for this car, and I linked the video that I learned this from in the description. So big shout out to Suelio for sharing crucial bits of knowledge with us on YouTube. And that's it guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video, I hope it helps. If it does, please let me know in the comments, consider liking, consider subscribing. Please also let me know in the comments if I forgot something, let me know if you have any more tips. The links to my Discord and to my Twitch are in the description, so if you're into that, make sure you check that out. I wish you happy LMP3 racing guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.